Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Today on CityCast Denver, you can't see it. You can't smell it. You can't hear it, but it's coming. Can you feel it in your nose, in your throat? A tickle, a shortness of breath? It's a silent, invisible threat, and it's coming from inside the car. Coming this summer to every waking moment spent outdoors in this smoggy city. Watch out for ozone. Today is Friday, July 29th, 2022. I'm Paul Caroli, and this is CityCast Denver. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the city of imminent smog. It's Friday, and we're in the Lindy Zimmer studio at Westward to talk through the news of the week. The news of the week is air quality. It's that time of year again. It's going to get bad. Bree, I see you shaking your head. Our guest shaking her head.
You said imminent, and we're in it, right?
Yeah, I think we're in it.
It's always kind of scary when you look at, I live on the 8th floor of a building, and so I have a great view of the mountains. And it's always a little disconcerting when you can't see the mountains.
Yeah, no, that's a great indicator, Joanne. That's a great indicator when you're like, oh, there's no mountains today.
Yeah, and it's a little scary because it's like, wait, this is freaky. Are they gone?
Feels like a possibility in this current world.
Exactly, because you never know what's going to happen next. You just don't.
You
it's
really
just,
don't.
Yeah, it's weird.
All right, well, we're getting into it already. I should introduce everybody. Bree, of course, is here. Bree, welcome.
Hi, Paul.
And joining us this week is my friend, recently retired host for Colorado Public Radio, and soon-to-be columnist for the Denver Post, Joanne Allen is here.
I am here. I am excited about so many things in retirement, and thank you for mentioning the column. It actually went online yesterday.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that a little bit more later on in the show, but for now, we gotta talk more about this smog problem, and specifically RTD. That's the big story of the week. RTD, Regional Transportation District, the agency in charge of running our buses, running our light rails. They have been all over the news. Lots of big stories. The first one seems like a really, really nice thing. Thanks to state lawmakers earlier this year and $28 million from our state budget, all RTD services, from buses to light rail, will be free for 1 month starting on Monday, August 1st. So you can just get on the bus, you don't have to pay, ride it to your heart's content, ride it back and forth, up and down Colfax all day, whatever you want to do.
Let's do that.
Really? Do you want to? We could.
I say that, and now I don't know if I really mean it.
Well, I hope you don't mean it because you're not going to have any fun.
I know. I was going to say it might taint my love of Colfax a little bit if I had to ride the bus all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because also those seats aren't the most comfortable.
Yeah.
So they're even worse on the light rail. But they're not very comfy. You can't just,
Can't just really settle in on the 15.
Nah, you'll want to get off soon.
Well, we're lucky to have Joanne here today because Joanne, you're an RTD rider.
I am an avid RTD rider because I believe in public transportation. I've only owned 2 cars in my entire life, and they were totally must situations that I had to have a car. But I believe in public transportation, and I actually do enjoy it. And I'm not going to sit and ride for all day, on the 15, but, I enjoy the ability to, number one, do work on the ride,
mm-hmm.
and also you get exercise. You got to get to that bus stop or to that train stop. So you're not in a car, trying to park as close to the door as you can and walk as little as possible. Or if I go to the grocery store, I, will pay less money because I'm going to get fewer groceries because I got to carry them home. I got to carry them home in the bag, get to the train and take them. So I just have gotten into the habit of being a public transportation person, and I adore it also because I love to tweak my friends who say, hey, I'll come pick you up. And I'm like, oh no, I can just take the train. And they'll say, but we'll give you a ride. I say, yeah, but when we get to the destination, you got to look for parking. And I'm in the car with you looking for parking. I could easily be at the venue chilling until you get there if I just take the train or the bus. Are you?
I'm like, why? Let me drive you. Let me pick you up.
No. There's something about knowing that in part you are helping with air pollution by not having a car. But I'm just so in the habit of it. And I just wish more people would, whether or not there's a free month to ride or not, because I'm not so sure that a free month of riding is going to make people, it's going to make them change and see the light. That's, I don't know if they're going to even try it.
Well, let's get into it, because that's the big question here is like, does this make sense? Because the whole point is to reduce the ozone problem, reduce this terrible air quality situation we've got in the summers. But Bree, what did you think? Is this policy going to work?
Real quick, though, I want to ask Joanne a question, because you'd mentioned this earlier when we were chatting before we were recording, that you'd lived in New York and you'd lived in Philly. And I lived in New York for a year and I didn't have a car. It's very hard to have a car, honestly. It's expensive. Parking, where do you park in New York? I have no idea. And taking the bus and the subway were easier. I wonder if that sets you up for success to a certain extent, being in Colorado, because you already had that mindset of getting around.
Yeah, it did, because New York's a huge place, and you can get from one part of it to another faster, a lot faster on public transportation. Not the buses so much, but definitely on the subway. And so, I had owned a car before I moved to New York, and ever since New York, I have been just dedicated to taking public transportation. But you're right, it's a part of me. Every friend I have in the world knows that I'm a big public trans person. And so I learned relatively early in my 20s that this is a way to go. This is a way that is easy to go. And when I came to Denver, I thought, I'm going to have to buy a car. But then I met some folks who don't have cars here, believe it or not. Even on like the second day I was in town, I met people who didn't have cars. I'm like, well, maybe I don't need a car. And I went to looking for a car to buy, and took some friends with me and thought about it seriously. And then I saw that other person who told me that they didn't have a car again, and she said, you don't need a car in Denver if you're just going to pretty much be in Denver. And so I rented a place on the E and F and H line because it would get me to my work quite easily, or to downtown quite easily. So I ended up really loving moving here because I didn't have to get a car. I do have a parking space at my apartment building, but I don't have a car to put in it.
That's valuable.
It is.
You could rent that.
I know.
You could rent that space. Sorry, Paul. I just wanted to say, I found that part. This to me is the crux of the problem.
It's the entire thing. It's the entire question.
Joanne is the example of what it takes mentally for folks who have the luxury, like myself. I have the luxury of an option. Some folks don't. Cars are expensive. But, I'm sure you went to look at a car and were like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, there's just so many aspects of owning a car that I don't like. I don't even like going to the gas station. And I hate that thing of having to check your tire pressure. I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff.
Or finding a mechanic you trust. I mean, I'm very fortunate. My cousin's my mechanic. That's part of the reason I have the kind of car I do, because the person that works on it is someone who's in my family who I trust. So,
but I agree with you. You have to be someone who has the option of owning a car. Because if you got a bunch of kids, you're going to need a car.
It's hard.
Or if you are not able-bodied, if you have, some sort of a need to use a car, that you can't just go run for a train. you need a car, and that's understandable. But there's so many people, so many families with 3 and 4 cars, and everybody going their own, separate direction. It's just like, that's ridiculous. Come on, get rid of at least one of those cars if you have 4 cars in your family. Come on.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's a lifestyle. You have to build your life around it. Like you said, you chose the place to live based on what transit lines was on. Like you knew that was your mindset coming to Denver because of the place you had come from. I don't think most people here have made that same choice, and I don't think the city really allows that. Like I have some data here from the 2019 Denver Moves report from the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Of course you do, you nerd.
Oh, I got so much data right here.
Of course.
So much. Well, this report says that only 10% of Denver residents live within a half mile of a train station, and only 25% of Denver residents are within a convenient walk to all-day frequent service.
Or a safe walk. Or, you know what I mean? Like an actual physically accessible walk.
That is a knock against the system here, is that it really doesn't serve the area well. I don't have to worry about, can I get a train, can I get a bus, because I am close to both. There's actually a bus stop right in front of my apartment, I have to admit. But there are just parts of the city that you have to take 2 and 3 buses to get to, where you want to go. And that is a consideration to take. So if it was a better product, I guess that's one of the knocks against the system here, is that it doesn't really serve the public well. It has a long way to go to do that. And it's so funny because for 7 years here working, I mostly, just rode the train and the bus. And now I have time to discover neighborhoods I never knew about. I could see them from the train, and I couldn't always. So when you do ride only public transportation in Denver, where you go in the city is limited. And I'm amazed at some of the neighborhoods that I've seen and where things are that I've heard about. So yeah, there's pros and cons here.
Well, Bria, I got to hear your opinion on this, because this is something we've talked about a lot, and this is kind of an interesting thing RTD is trying here with this free month.
I love the idea. I just don't know how effective it's going to be. You know what I mean? And this comes down to a lot of people like me, the often single occupant car driver, making a decision to change our patterns. Like I could think about getting here. We record at Westward on Thursdays. I live at Alameda and Federal. We're at Lincoln and 13th. It's not impossible. Those are major intersections, right? But I don't know, man. My attachment to my car is deep. It's like my closet. It's where I keep all my crap. I like to listen to my although I will say, again, I lived in New York for a fleeting year, and that time I spent on the train, I know what you're saying, Joanne, reading, playing Sudoku, just like chilling out, observing people. It's unparalleled. You can't do that in your car. In your car, you're like doing something, like you're driving. When you're not driving, you're just experiencing the city. So it's a mindset change for people like me.
There's another factor I want to talk about.
Does it involve numbers and stuff like that?
No numbers.
Okay.
But I have to say, I kept reading about this program, and the more I read about it, the less excited I got about it. And I kind of think this is a disaster of an idea, for 2 reasons. One, the RTD's current services, the network, does not serve enough people. And, well, actually, I guess a few reasons. Another one, people have tried this before. Other cities have tried this like temporary free fare thing. There's data available. We know it doesn't work. Like our friend Nate Miner from Colorado Public Radio, he reported earlier on a similar experiment that RTD did in the 70s. That a federal report came back on this experiment that showed that free fares resulted in a significant ridership increase, yes, But it also found that only about 12,000 bus trips a day were made by former drivers or auto passengers, amounting to a decrease in driving so small it was indistinguishable from typical daily variations in driving patterns caused by things like weather. It didn't remove car trips. That's not what these temporary free fare programs do.
It does have this twinge of idealism.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is going to be amazing, you guys. We're going to get everybody on the bus. Are we? Maybe not, because they don't serve people in an adequate way. Like, Joanne, again, you live in what's called transit-oriented development, right? Housing that is connected to a that was probably part of the purpose, right? Or they built the transit to connect. And that's just not the case for so much of Denver. We're part of that post-World War II sprawl situation where buses were not supposed to serve the suburbs because white folks didn't want that for many reasons. I mean, this is like, again, we get back to our history of segregation and redlining and how our cities are laid out and built. And that infrastructure reflects who gets served today. So again, you're right, Paul. I mean, I love the idea, but what do we really need? And also, I would ask this, Joanne, do you think this is a PR problem partially for RTD? Because to me, as a driver, I read about RTD all day, and it's a real bummer. And I think, why would I want it? This thing seems to serve no one. But as a rider, do you find that it serves you?
Well, it serves me, but then again, you just explained why.
Sure.
I'm right there. I made a conscious decision to be on a train line. I am going to go to the places that the lines go to. So the PR problem comes in, I think, because when I first came to Denver, there was a whole thing around the A train.
Sure.
And the crossings and so they got a lot of bad press as a result of
Brand new thing that doesn't work.
yes, and doesn't work for months.
Like that's not good. That's the worst PR.
And being behind schedule on so many of the commuter lines.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of the maybe one or two lines have extended in the city since being here. But I think that really gave them a black eye, a bad rep. And you couple that with this being a Western city, meaning out west here, folks were like, car is king. We are not going to put in any kind of mass transit system. And I don't know if it was because Detroit helped to decide that, and the oil companies all helped to decide that. But the major cities tried to put in public transportation after the fact. Once you've gotten the population, then it's like, oh, well, maybe, no, whereas it grew in cities like Chicago and New York, along with the population. So there was, like a kernel or a hub, and then everything kind of went out from that. Here, you're trying to put in something in retrospect, and it's hard. It's hard to get people who are used to these wide open spaces and love to go into the mountains. You need a car for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've long thought that the streetcar system that Denver used to have that people look back on and idealize, I think that stifled the growth of a public transit system because those were private streetcars. And then when those went away, when that model didn't make sense anymore, we were left trying to figure out in retrospect how to refit our streets and our system with transit.
I just learned something from you, Paul. I didn't know there were private streetcars.
Yeah, they would build out to where, I think about, the one I'm thinking about is Lakeside Amusement Park. That was part of a deal. It was like a private streetcar was like, we'll come out to you. It was like a business deal.
Interesting.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
All right, well, there's one other aspect of this RTD free fare program that I really want to hear your take on, Joanne. I was shocked to learn yesterday when I was reading about this that the initial proposal was to do free fares all summer. That's what lawmakers wanted to do, and it was in fact RTD that pushed back and said, we do not have the capacity. We can't do it. We don't have enough drivers. People do not want to drive these buses and do this work because conditions on these buses are not suitable it's not a comfortable workplace. Which made me remember this beautiful piece I read in the Washington Post like maybe a month or two ago.
I was just thinking about this, Paul.
Oh, it was like, it broke my heart. But it was a profile of a bus driver named Suna Karabay, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I hope everybody reads it, but I want to read just a short excerpt. It says, in the past 2 years, Denver area bus drivers had reported being assaulted by their passengers more than 145 times. Suna had been spit on, hit with a toolbox, threatened with a knife, pushed in the back while driving, and chased into a restroom during her break. Her windshield had been shattered with rocks or glass bottles 3 times. After the most recent incident, she'd written to a supervisor that, quote, this job now is like being a human stress ball. Joanne, does that sound like your experience riding RTD?
Not at all.
Yeah?
That is, whoa. I mean, I think of Denver as a relatively calm place. And I'm recognizing more and more that there's some bad stuff happening here too. But I have never seen any of that. I've never seen law enforcement, or who are they, security guards or whatever, the transit security people, the operators. I've never seen any of them threatened. But then again, where am I riding? You know, I'm not riding in areas where there might be some controversy,
Sure.
or people who are, you know, at their wits' end for some reason or another. So I'm a middle class chick, and that's what I do. That's where I'm at. So I've not seen that. Mm-hmm. I think that the light rail system and the buses have been free for the past 2 years.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I ride every day, and I have not had a security officer do a fare check on me in over 2 years.
Oh, on the light rail, because
on the light rail.
The light rail is like an honor system to a certain extent.
No, but the light rail, but
on.
At least you knew at least maybe 2 or 3 times a week you would get checked, because there would be personnel there checking your eco card or your ticket or whatever. There's no security officers riding the trains, especially I would say in the last year. And I guess it's pandemic related.
Yeah,
fewer of them are available. It's a staffing issue. But even when I go to get on the bus, the bus drivers don't look at you. You flash your ticket, they don't even look at you. So the system is already free, and I'm not encouraging that you people not buy your tickets and stuff. But the fact is, it's free now. I don't know when they're going to start checking fares again. But if you take the
Breaking
8 train,
news.
yeah,
Joanne Allen says RTD is already
It's
free. What are they talking about?
Yeah, but I think maybe the commuter trains, they check tickets. I know the A train, they still check tickets. But otherwise, I have not seen a security officer in years.
Fascinating.
Isn't that
this
wild?
is a helpful anecdote from a person that utilizes public transit every day.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild. But I think, again, it speaks to that lack of staffing.
Yeah.
Which a lot of industries are facing for many reasons. But I don't know. I mean, you'll have to read this Washington Post piece.
I will.
It's incredible what she says she's experienced as a driver. And it just made me think, well, of course, I wouldn't want to do that job. I don't blame her for not wanting to do that job.
No.
Nobody should be treated that way.
It's dangerous. If you had told me that was a story from New York, I'd go, oh, yeah, sure, of course. But Metro Denver?
Yeah.
I mean, she's a driver on the 15, so we're talking about Colfax. We're talking about downtown.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
The other news this week from RTD is that we don't have to talk about this one much. This is, we've talked about this on the show quite a bit earlier in the year, but RTD's board approved a plan to they're saying overhaul bus routes all across the metro area. It's going to be rolling out over the next 5 years, but it's going to change routes they're going to focus, so it's going to increase service more on the busiest routes in the city and remove other routes entirely, mostly in the suburbs. So it's not going to affect cost like this free fare program, but hopefully it's going to serve the people that need these services most, I think is the idea.
Again, we had this conversation with Nate. Like, it's that paradox of like, how do you get people to ride if you're removing opportunities for them to ride because there's not enough people in their area riding? You know what I mean? Like, if there isn't a high demand for the bus by your house, cutting it, is that the way to, you know, like, how do we get people to use public transit if we keep making it harder for people to use public transit? Because the high trafficked areas are probably, I would assume, in areas where, like downtown. Okay, so the bus runs all the time downtown. Who can afford to live downtown?
Well, maybe what they should do is increase it not just in high traffic areas, but underserved areas.
That's
because
a big difference. Yeah.
I often take the 24 bus. It goes up University and it goes all the way to the A train, which is how I would get to the airport. Is to do that. It used to run every half hour, but since the pandemic, it now runs on the hour, and the bus stop is right in front of my house. Super convenient. I love it, but often there's like 2 or 3 people on it. You know, even in my neighborhood where people take the train a lot. But that bus, and I'm not saying cut the 24 RTD board, but I would rather see that bus in an area where people don't have cars and need that service more. Now, I don't particularly not want to have the bus stop right in front of my apartment, but it's usually not a lot of folks on it. Mm-hmm. Now, Downing Street, that bus, is it the 12? I guess it is.
I think it's the 12.
That is a crowded bus very often. So they need maybe to put the 24 over,
and run it on
the 12. Yeah. It will cut service that I love and like to use. But, I can get to the airport. I can go down to Union Station, get on the train and go there. I don't need it to go to the airport. So I think they really do need to take a look at the buses where there are few riders, especially in the middle of the day, and rearrange that service.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they're trying to do. I guess my question is just like, it seems counter to this thing that they're telling us, which is we're also making buses free this month to get you to use them. Well, I've never used it before, but it's not running that much near my house now, so I'm definitely not going to use it. I don't know.
That's the thing for me where I came down on is like this free fare program, that wasn't RTD's idea. That was like the lawmakers, the politicians. Sure. I think RTDs, it's smart people doing the most and doing the best they can with limited resources. And they've had a bad reputation for a long time, and we're not funding them properly. And if we funded them properly to pay bus drivers adequately to want to do this job, that we would have much better transportation services and people would be able to build their lives around that.
Well, do you think part of the problem is the fact that folks in Colorado don't like to be taxed? I mean,
yes,
they absolutely, I have never been in a place like this where it's just like services for the public. Forget that. We want our tax cut. And we want it to keep coming for decades. I want
to drive in my car tax-free with the windows up, smoking, leave me alone.
It's like, we're here for the greater good. We should be here helping each other. And if the greater good requires you to pay a little more in taxes that you can afford, can afford, then do it.
Or just redistribute some of the things that we spend money on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think this is transit. This is a thing I hear from transit advocates a lot is, like you're saying, Paul, we just don't fund it. Yeah. So it's strained to begin with. It's on limited resources. We're expecting RTD to work miracles when maybe we need to redistribute the state's budget.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yep. All right, well, I think that's a good spot to end this segment.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break.
Look at you putting the end to it.
That's what I do.
You're like, let's put an end to this little segment here.
More money.
All right, we got a couple more fun things to talk about after a quick break. See you in a sec. All right, right, and we're back. And I'm going to start off this second segment with a piece of data. According to the latest point-in-time survey of Denver's homeless population, there are almost 7,000 people living unhoused across the metro region right now. That's 7,000 people without easy access to a shower, a bed, a warm meal. Joanne, I know this has been on your mind a lot lately. What are you thinking?
Well, one of the things I've been thinking about is, of course, we need to put more money into people who need our help. You know, there's a 7,000 unhoused people in the Denver area is just a sin and a shame. One of the little things that I'm doing, and I would encourage others to do this as well, is in addition to giving to organizations and charities and helping in that way, if you're walking on the street and you see someone who is holding up a sign saying they're homeless and they need help, or whatever the sign may read doesn't really matter, you can look at them and see that they in fact do need help. They need your help. So what I've started doing is I carry a wad of $1 bills and $5 bills with me wherever I go. And if I see someone who is asking for money, I walk over to them and I give them money. And I know that there are those who say, oh, you are just perpetuating their unhoused situation, their alcoholism, their drug abuse, any number of things people will say. I'm like, you really think if I don't give this person $5 that they are going to instead go, oh, let me get to a meeting and straighten myself out and get a job and make sure that I can support myself? That is so simplistic, it's almost scary when someone thinks that way. So I am an advocate of giving to people that you see are in need on the streets. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be money. It can be, and I see this a lot already, food. And it doesn't have to be food that's left over from your dinner. It can be food that you go somewhere. You see someone on the street all the time. Go and buy them a meal. Go and buy them a sandwich. Go get them something. Help them help someone. Let me say it this way. Try and help someone at least a couple of times a week. Just do it, because we will be helping them in a way that you have no idea. When I give someone a dollar, that's not a lot of money to any of us sitting at this table. When I give someone $1 and they look me in the eye and they say, thank you, ma'am, you really feel it. You see that $1 means a lot to them. And it's a way of saying, I see you. You're part of the community. I'm going to help you if I can. And I just would encourage people not to do like I gave a person on, I think it was 16th Street Mall, a $20 bill. It was a woman in a wheelchair who had a leg cut off. Where's she going to get money from? So I gave her this money, and some guy had the nerve to come up to me and say, why are you helping her?
What?
She's just gonna go buy some drugs or alcohol, and she's not gonna buy food with that. And I said, well, first off, you don't know that. Do you know her? How do you know that? And secondly, what if she does go and buy a pint? So what? Are you going to a 5 o'clock cocktail hour somewhere and alleviate your pain and distress? Yes, in
Behind
all
closed
probability.
doors.
Exactly.
Behind closed doors.
Is it because you can afford to do it on your own that it's okay for you to do it? You might be someone who gets drunk every night, and so you're assailing me for trying to help someone because you've decided that they're not worthy. I'm like, kiss my ass, dude.
That's making my blood boil a little bit hearing that story, Joanne. I gotta tell you.
That weird moral policing that someone else is doing of you minding your own business, interacting with another human being in a public space, however you choose, is none of his business.
None of his business. And it's like, who are you to pretend like you are God or a deity or what? Who are you? I don't know you. Get away from me.
Gross.
Yeah. So I just think, let's help somebody. Try and help somebody 2 and 3 and 4 times a week if you can.
And if you can't, just look at someone in the face. I mean, that's what I do if I'm passing folks on the street who are flying a sign. If I don't have cash, which often I don't, you're making me realize, like, maybe I should just carry some cash because I don't use cash a lot of other places. Just look at someone in the face and say hi. Like, you don't have to give something, but you can just be a person.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think also folks just need to re-examine their own assumptions when they look at a person and they make a weird assumption like that. Like, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. This story would look very different if I was unhoused. Whatever I was dealing with would be out in the public, and then everybody gets to judge you. And I hate that. Like, another thing I would also recommend is, like, I think about, I talk a lot about Harm Reduction Action Center on the show. They do work with folks every single day. I drive by their location on Lincoln every Thursday, and I see Ruth, one of their folks that works there, out on the corner talking to her people, giving them food, inviting them in. Harm Reduction Action Center works with folks every day who are dealing with substance use issues in a real way. And in a real way, I mean, they're not the morality police. They're like, hey, do you want some breakfast? Do you need to charge your phone? Hey, can we help you connect with Medicaid? But none of that is about what you should be doing or what I think you should do, or, and like, that is just the part that drives me nuts, that someone felt that they had who are they to come to you and say what you should do?
We're supposed to deprive people of their humanness.
It's disgusting.
You get out of my face.
Right.
I'm just, I try not to get into fights, and I actually have never been in a fight with anyone, physically, but I just, okay, I'm gonna calm down now.
Can I just say I do love helping people on the street if someone asks for money, but there is one exception I'll make. And Bree, you and I were talking about this yesterday, but there is one exception. If someone's begging for money on the street, I will not give money to a juggler. Just no, never, not a single cent.
Are you gonna make
if you're juggling,
are you gonna make me air my beef, Paul? There's these Burning Man style guys that are usually at Alameda and Santa Fe, and sometimes they get all the way up to Alameda and Federal, and they have a sign that says, like, rob the red light juggler or whatever, Venmo me, and then here I'm gonna juggle with my light up things, and like, I get out of my intersection.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the guys, because I've seen this around Cherry Creek Mall, that what is
Yep.
it, First?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same
Yeah,
guys.
they'll stand in the middle of the
Yes.
street.
Yes.
I'm like, what is he doing?
I don't know why that just rubs me the wrong way. I have no problem with folks flying signs asking for money. Like, I guess it's a free country, whatever. I don't know why. It just like drives me nuts. I'm like, go busk on the 16th Street Mall. Like, take your talent to elsewhere, but don't stand in the middle of the street. It also makes me nervous. I'm like watching the light. I'm like, is this guy gonna move? Or he knows what he's doing. So
you should tell him to take your talents to Miami, and become. Was it LeBron James who said that?
Yes.
Like, South Beach or something.
I'm taking my talents to South Beach.
Yeah. So take your
next time you see Art Basel. Like, what are they doing?
Tell them take your talents to South Beach.
Take your talents to
You'll
the
become
desert.
A
I don't know.
gazillionaire.
Well, all right, listeners. The panel today says give money to people begging on the street unless they're jugglers. That's the consensus here. And let's wrap up here with a little preview of that column that we mentioned earlier, Joanne. So you're starting this new column for the Denver Post. The first one is out now. People will put a link to it in the show notes. Do you want to give us a little bit of a little preview of what people can expect?
Well, one of the things that has returned to top of mind for me is issues of race. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Deep South and lived through the civil rights era of the 60s. And even integrated the Catholic girls' high school down there. I was one of 30 students to integrate a school of about 800. And on the first day that I arrived, and I walked into the foyer, and there was just this sea of white girls, white faces everywhere you look. So I'm like nervous as hell. It's 1967. And I walk through, and I get about halfway through, and I hear someone yell out, I didn't know they let niggers up in here. And I was like devastated and really scared. So I finally got through that, phalanx of white girls. And I've told this story 1,000 times. And the reason I'm telling it now is because from maybe age 4 through 21, I recognized a lot about racism. And then from 21 to about 55, not so much. But in recent years, it has come back. Overt racism is a thing in America that people feel free to do, to be, to act out against people of color. And so my feelings, especially as I've gotten older and I've lived quite a bit, is that the most important issue to me right now is race. And concomitant with that is the lack of Black generational wealth. It's an issue that I really hadn't thought about for a long time, but we were selling my dad's home fairly recently, and one of my brothers said, we should keep this in the family. We didn't, but for other reasons, but we should keep this in the family and pass it on. And I think since then, I've begun to think slowly and slowly about Black generational wealth. And my column focuses on the fact that I take a stroll each evening. Well, I try every evening, but I don't always make it each evening. But I often will stroll through an area near my house that's a middle, upper class area. Mm-hmm. And it's very white. It's overly white. It's extremely white. And it is a beautiful section of town. It's Observatory Park.
Oh, yeah.
Those homes are incredible.
Yeah.
But I find myself, as I'm thinking more and more about race, becoming angrier and angrier that there is this huge lack of Black generational wealth across the country and here in Denver. Mm-hmm. So that essentially is me, being able to get my anger out and to write about it and to bring in instances of where we had a chance to make changes, but we didn't. And how it's usually when white people decide that this is an issue we need to examine, that things will change. So that's what I'm doing. I am writing about it so that people will think about it and then do something about it. Not just continue to be complacent and say, well, as an individual, I have nothing to do with that. I agree as an individual, but collectively, you have gained wealth through the generations, in part thanks to racism.
Fascinating. Such an interesting topic,
Absolutely.
Joanne. I'm so glad that you're writing this column. I cannot wait to read more from you more frequently. I'm so excited. We're, of course, going to put a link to that first one in our show notes. And I have to say, a little preview for next week on the show, Bree had a great conversation with one of our favorite people, Theo Wilson.
About this very topic.
That's going to be on the show next week. So listeners, stay tuned for that and check out that first column from Joanne in the show notes. I think we got to end it there. Bree, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's been fun. I hope you'll
You're
have me
awesome.
back.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
we'd love to have you back. Anytime.
I'd
Anytime.
love to have you on again. You're wonderful.
Also, I'm going to do a little bit of promotion here.
Please
Bring
do.
it on. Plug
Check
away.
out Been There, Done That, my podcast. It tells the real life stories of the baby boom generation, and you'll find my website at BeenThereDoneThatPodcast.com.
All right. Fantastic. See you all next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were me, Paul Caroli, and Aaron O'Toole. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at CityCast Denver, and tell a friend about us next time you see them. You can sign up for that daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week, everyone. This summer, watch out for ozone, coming this August to every waking moment spent outdoors in this smoggy city.